Welcome to HFY Beyond Terra, where humanity doesn't just survive, it becomes the galaxy's biggest surprise. Subscribe, and let's go beyond Terra.
The whisper arrived like heat through a crack in armor. "If you die," she said, voice so low it threaded itself between the alarms, "I will burn the galaxy." The medbay's lights stuttered. Somewhere in the ship's ribs, a pump coughed. My blood, too much of it, was warm against my side, spreading beneath the makeshift pressure seal the corpsman had slapped over the wound. The scent of antiseptic fought a losing war with the metallic tang of me. I turned my head enough to see her, though the movement flashed white behind my eyes. She didn't flinch at the gore. She never did. Captain Achave of the Sable Concordance, the woman the hegemony called the Ash Regent, stood at my bedside with her coat unfastened and her hands bare, an intimacy in itself. Her skin wasn't human pale or human brown, but the deep blue of storm water under moonlight. Along her temples, faint ridges caught the light like the edge of a blade. Her pupils were narrow slits, and right now they were pinned on me as if my body were the last stable star in an unsteady sky. I should have laughed. I should have told her to save the theatrics for the diplomats. I should have done a lot of things. Instead, I believed her, because I'd seen what she did to a moon once and how quickly the galaxy pretended it hadn't. "Don't," I tried to say. It came out as a rasp. Her gaze didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. "I am not asking permission." That's usually my line, I managed, and the attempt at humor made my stitches pull. The corpsman, a young woman with sweat glued to her hairline, looked between us with the exhausted despair of someone trapped in a room with two disasters. "If you're going to talk," she said, "do it in short sentences. He's losing pressure." Ashaz's fingers hovered above my wrist without touching. Not yet. Her people believed touch was a promise. Humans used it like punctuation. I wanted her hand there anyway, irrationally, like it could anchor me. "I will not lose you," she said. "Then don't burn anything," I whispered back. "Just keep me alive." Her throat moved as if swallowing something too large. "If I cannot," she said, and the words were soft and final, "then I will make the universe pay for the theft." It wasn't romance. Not entirely. It was terror shaped into devotion. The ship lurched, and somewhere beyond the medbay bulkhead, the howl of decompression rose and fell like a beast breathing. The corpsman swore. "Impact in 90 seconds, she snapped, glancing at the hollow. "We're still inside the debris field." I forced my eyes open wider. The last thing I remembered before the medbay was the station. Kestrel spindle, folding in half like paper in a fire. The sabotage charge going off too early. The shockwave tossing me into a corridor, wall hard enough to make stars bloom behind my eyes. We weren't supposed to be here. Not in the spindle's shadow. Not with the hegemony's interdiction fleet crawling all over the system like parasites. And certainly not with Achave personally on board a human courier ship with a patched-up drive and a name that sounded like a joke. The unreasonable kindness. Human ships did that sometimes. Named themselves like a dare. Achave had thought it was an insult until I explained. She'd stared at the hull lettering for a long time, then said, "You name your weapons after virtues. No wonder the galaxy fears you." I told her the galaxy feared us because we were too stubborn to die quietly. Now she was promising to prove it. "Achave," I said, using her name without title again. It still felt like stepping onto a thin pane of ice. "Listen." "I am listening," she replied. "No galaxy burning, that's not," I coughed, pain spiking through my ribs. "That's not what we do." "That is exactly what I do," she said, and there was no pride in it, just truth. The corpsman's hands moved fast, checking seals, injecting coagulant. "Talk later," she muttered. "Survive now." Asha stepped back, but her eyes stayed fixed on me as if she could will the blood to stop. In that stare was everything that made diplomats stammer and admirals miscalculate, because it wasn't hatred, it was certainty. The first time I'd met her, she'd been standing amid the wreckage of a tribunal chamber, smoke curling around her like a crown, and she'd said, "You came alone." "I came honest," I answered. "That's rarer." She laughed once, surprised, and that laugh had started a chain reaction. No one in the system survived unchanged. The ship lurched again. The lights dimmed, came back. The hollow above the corpsman's shoulder jittered with the geometry of incoming collisions. "We're going to hit," the corpsman said. Asha's posture shifted. Every line of her body became purpose. "Pilot," she barked into the ship comm. "Put the ship's belly toward Vector 7. I will absorb the first strike." The corpsman froze. "You can't," Asha turned, and for one heartbeat the mask slipped. There was fear there, fierce and private, then it was gone. "Captain," I croaked. "Don't." Her gaze flicked to me. "If you die," she repeated, and it was quieter now, not a threat but a confession, "I will become what they say I am. I will become worse." The ship screamed as something scraped along our hull. The med bay shuddered. A tray of instruments clattered to the floor. And in that shaking moment, I understood the actual bargain the universe was offering. If I lived, she might not have to. If I died, she would. The galaxy would get its monster back. Humans had a reputation for being dangerous because we fought too hard, because we carried grudges like heirlooms and turned improvisation into doctrine. The aliens like to tell stories about our death-world aggression and our unpredictable empathy, as if those were opposing traits instead of two hands gripping the same rope. Asha was dangerous for a different reason. She didn't improvise, she committed. We picked up the Spindle's distress call because that's what the unreasonable kindness did. We ran mail, medicines, refugees, sometimes secrets, and we did it for people who couldn't afford the big fleets. We didn't ask who deserved help. We asked who needed it. The Spindle was a research station operated by the Hegemony's Ministry of Containment. Officially, it was a quarantine facility. Unofficially, it was where inconvenient species went to be studied until they became extinct in neat, documented ways. The distress call hadn't come through hegemony channels. It had come through the back end of the trade relays, encoded in a format only humans still used, old maritime emergency protocol. Mayday, Mayday, Mayday. We answered because we were human and because the word still meant something to us. We found the Spindle half dead, lights out on entire rings, bulkheads sealed, and then we'd found the cargo. Not minerals, not weapons, people. Hundreds of them. Small, fragile, breathing in stacked stasis coffins. And we'd found Asha in the core, alone, holding the detonator to the station's antimatter spine. She looked at me like I was an unexpected variable in an equation that had already decided to collapse. "I will not be captured again," she'd said. "You won't," I'd told her. "Not if you come with us." She asked, "Why would you help me?" I answered without thinking, "Because you're here, because I'm here, because I can." It wasn't noble. It was reflex. It was the human tendency to treat suffering as an invitation rather than a warning. She'd come with us, and then the hegemony had tried to take her back, and we'd learned what the Ash Regent really was. Not a monarch, not a pirate, but a living failsafe, an engineered relic from an old war, built by terrified worlds who decided deterrence was cheaper than peace. Ashaz's body housed a lattice of dormant starfire, contained singularity seeds that could be planted in a system's gravity wells. They didn't explode like bombs. They ate slow at first, then faster, a controlled unraveling of orbital order until the system became a smear of ash and drifting rock. Mutually assured erasure, she'd said once, almost bitter. The galaxy's favorite lullaby. She'd been built to be a promise no one could ignore. Then, after the war, everyone had agreed such promises were immoral. So the hegemony locked her away and called it containment. They'd expected her to stay a myth. Instead, she'd met a human courier with a foolish ship name and a stubborn sense of obligation. Now we were bleeding through the consequences. "Brace!" someone shouted over comm. The world went sideways. The strike hit like a giant fist. The medbay's gravity dipped, returned, dipped again. My body tried to float off the bed, straps biting into my shoulders. Pain flared in my side, and for a terrifying second I felt the seal give. The corpsman slapped it down with her palm. "No, you don't," she hissed, as if arguing with my organs. Asha stood with her feet planted, eyes closed, one hand pressed flat to the deck. Faint light traced up her arm under the skin, a constellation waking. The second impact was worse. The ship groaned. Something exploded somewhere distant. The comm filled with overlapping voices. "Hull breach, drive coupling, fire in corridor 3, the corpsman's face went pale. "We're not going to make it," she whispered. Asha opened her eyes and the light in them was not reflected. It was generated. She lifted her hand from the deck and stepped toward the door. "No," I rasped, the word rough with panic. "Asha," she paused, half-turned. "Don't do it alone," I said. If you become that again, you'll lose yourself." Her jaw tightened. "I have already lost myself," she replied. "You haven't," I insisted. "You're here, I fought for breath. "You're arguing with me. That's not a weapon, that's a person." Her expression flickered, anger, sorrow, something like relief that hurt to see. Then she did something I didn't expect. She came back to my bedside. Her hand finally settled on my wrist, warm and steady. The light under her skin dimmed as if responding to contact. "This is what you do," she said, voice low enough that the corpsman pretended not to hear. "You pull people away from the edge by insisting the edge is optional." "It is," I said. Her fingers tightened, not enough to hurt. "If you are wrong," she whispered, "I will not forgive you." "Fair," I breathed. "Live with me long enough to stay mad." For a moment the ship's chaos receded. It was just her eyes and my pulse under her hand. Then the comm crackled. "Captain Vey," the pilot said, strained. "We have an option. It's insane." Ashad didn't remove her hand. "State it." "The debris field is thickest near the spindle's remains, but there's a gravity shear, like the system's mass distribution is off. If we ride it, we can slingshot clear, but it'll tear us apart unless we reinforce the frame." Ashad's gaze sharpened. "Reinforce how?" Silence. "Then we'd need an external stabilizer, something that can anchor to the shear and distribute the load." The corpsman's eyes went wide. "No, no, no," Asha understood instantly. Her people were brilliant at war because they'd learned to see themselves as pieces in a machine. Sacrifice wasn't tragedy, it was function. "I can be the anchor," she said calmly. My stomach dropped. I tried to sit up and failed, breath hissing through my teeth. "Asha, no. It will not kill me," she said, and the lie was so gentle it was almost kind. "You will survive." "Not the point," I snapped, surprising myself with the force. "We don't win by throwing people into the void." Her eyes flashed. "Humans throw yourselves into voids constantly." Yes, I said, but we do it so no one else has to. That's the difference. The corpsman swallowed hard. If she goes out there, she said quietly, and her containment fails, we're in the blast radius of a myth. Ashaz's lips curved, humorless. Not a blast, a hunger. I gripped her wrist as best I could. Then don't feed it. The ship shook again, more violently. The hollow above the bed flickered to life for a second, showing our trajectory, a jagged red line ending in a bright dot that represented a collision we wouldn't survive. The pilot's voice was thin. Decision, Captain. Ashad looked at the hollow, then at me, then past me, as if seeing the stacked stasis coffins in the cargo hold. The rescued prisoners we'd pulled from the spindle, the ones who would die if we failed. Her grip on my wrist was steady. I was made to be a catastrophe, she said softly, more to herself than to anyone. I have been treated as one for so long that I forgot the difference between what I am and what I was designed for. Asha, I said, you can choose. Her eyes closed briefly, and when they opened, there was a new hardness, not the cold of a weapon, but the clarity of a person deciding something difficult. Pilot, she said into the calm, prepare the slingshot. The pilot exhaled. And the anchor, Ashaz's hand remained on my wrist. I will provide it. The corpsman's face collapsed. You just said, Ashaz lifted her other hand, palm outward, and the air in the medbay seemed to tighten as if space itself was listening. But not like that, she added. Then she looked at me and something unguarded showed. Human, she said, using the word the way some people used prayer. If you survive this, you will be angry with me. Probably, I admitted. Good, she whispered. Anger is proof you are alive. She released my wrist and stood, rolling her shoulders as if settling into a familiar weight. The light under her skin began to glow again, but it wasn't flaring wildly. It was controlled, channeled. She moved to the medbay wall and placed her palm against it, right where the ship's structural spine ran like a nerve. I can lace the frame, she said, voice level. Not with hunger seeds, with field tension. I can make your little courier ship act like it has bones. The corpsman stared. You can do that. Ashaz's eyes didn't leave the bulkhead. I was built to interact with gravity as a weapon. That means I can interact with it as a brace. I felt my throat tighten. HFY stories love to make humans the singular miracle. But the real human trick wasn't being the strongest. It was making space for something else to be more than what it had been forced to be. The comm crackled. Captain Vey, the pilot said, disbelief threading the words. If you can stiffen the frame, we can ride the shear, but we'll need continuous modulation. The forces will change second by second. Ashaz's jaw set. Then I will modulate. The ship's alarms rose to a new pitch. Everyone strap in, the pilot ordered. Slingshot in 30. The corpsman braced herself at my bedside, hands hovering like she could physically keep my blood inside me by force of will. Ashaz stayed at the wall, palm pressed, eyes half-lidded. The glow under her skin spread outward in delicate branching lines like frost patterns on glass, except it was light, and it made my teeth ache faintly, like standing too close to a storm. The ship trembled as if reluctant to be held together. The bulkheads creaked, protesting, and then we moved. Not forward in a smooth line, but in a sickening curve like being dragged along the inside edge of a spinning blade. Gravity shifted. My stomach tried to climb into my throat. The straps cut into my shoulders. The hollow flashed red as the shear caught us. The unreasonable kindness screamed, but it did not break. The hull groaned, the sound deep and animal. Somewhere metal shrieked, then quieted, as if the ship itself was surprised it was still intact. Ashaz's face tightened. A bead of something dark, not quite blood, not quite oil, appeared at the corner of her mouth. She didn't wipe it away. Her focus was absolute. The pilot's voice came through in bursts. Hold, by all the empty gods, it's working. Another surge hit and the ship bent. I felt it even through the bed. A bending that should not have been survivable. Asha made a low sound, not pain exactly, but effort. The light under her skin surged, then stabilized again like a heart finding rhythm. Seconds stretched. The alarms blended into one continuous wail. My vision tunneled at the edges. I forced myself to keep watching her because if I looked away, I was afraid she'd become a myth again, something distant and inevitable. Asha's eyes met mine across the medbay, and in that look I saw what her vow had really meant. She wasn't threatening the galaxy because she loved violence. She was threatening it because she had finally found something, someone who made her want to be more than violence. And she was terrified the universe would take that away because the universe always did. The ship lurched one final time, then silence. Not true silence, systems still hummed, and somewhere a crew member sobbed with relief. But the alarms cut off one by one until the medbay felt like the aftermath of a storm, wrecked, damp with sweat, and alive. The pilot's voice came through, shaking. "We're clear." Debris field behind us. Hull integrity compromised but stable. The corpsman sagged against the bed. "We're alive," she whispered, as if saying it might jinx it. Asha's palm slid down the bulkhead. She stood very still for a moment, then turned. Her face was pale beneath the blue. The glow under her skin dimmed to embers. She took one step toward me, then another, and on the third her knees buckled. The corpsman swore and moved, but I was already reaching, trembling, for Asha's hand. She caught herself on the edge of the bed, breath shallow. The dark at her mouth had become a thin line down her chin. "I did not burn anything," she murmured, and there was something like wonder in it. "You didn't," I said, throat thick. "You saved us." Her eyes searched mine as if verifying the words were real. Then her voice dropped into that same intimate register as before. "And you are still here." "Still here," I confirmed. Asha's fingers closed around mine. This time the touch wasn't a promise of vengeance. It was a promise of restraint, but fear still lived under it, coiled and watchful. "You heard what I said," she whispered. "If you die—" "I heard you," I said. Her gaze flickered, vulnerable. "And you believed me." "I did," I admitted. "Because you could." Her grip tightened and her expression twisted as if that truth hurt. I shifted as carefully as I could, wincing, and pulled her hand closer to my chest, close enough that she could feel the rapid thud of my heart through my skin. "But listen," I whispered. "If I die, you don't get to turn into their nightmare, not because they deserve mercy, because you deserve to live as yourself." Asha's breath hitched. "That is a cruel thing to ask," she said. "It's a human thing to ask," I replied. "We're annoying like that." For the first time since the medbay, something like a laugh trembled in her throat, small, broken, real. "Human," she said, voice unsteady. "You make me want things that are not weapons." "Good," I said. "Keep wanting them." The corpsman cleared her throat loudly, pretending she hadn't been listening to two powerful idiots confessing existential dependence while she held a ship together with duct tape and spite. "He's still bleeding," she announced. "So unless either of you can romance the wound closed, we're back to medical priorities." Asha didn't let go of my hand, but she nodded once, sharp. She looked at the corpsman with something that was almost respect. "Save him," she said. The corpsman rolled her eyes. "That's the plan." As the coagulant hissed and the medbay lights steadied, I watched Ashaz's shoulders slowly ease, the tension unwinding by degrees. Outside, the stars wheeled indifferent. Inside, a former doomsday device sat on the edge of a human bed and chose, again, not to become the galaxy's fire. Later, hours later, when the ship had limped to the edge of safe space and the stasis coffins in the cargo hold had been moved to a station that didn't treat living beings like inventory, I woke to find Ashaz sitting beside me. The medbay was dim. The ship's ambient hum was calmer. My side ached, but the pain had been negotiated down to something manageable. Ashaz's gaze was on the viewport, a narrow slit that showed a scatter of stars like salt thrown across black cloth. "Do you know what terrifies me most?" she asked without looking at me. "That question has too many possible answers," I said, voice rough with sleep. She turned slightly. In the low light, the ridges at her temples looked softer, less like armor. "I was made as a final argument," she said. "An unanswerable threat. And then I met you, and you treated me like a person with choices." I swallowed. "You are," her lips pressed together. "If you had died today," she said, "I would have burned everything between your grave and the edge of the universe. I would have called it justice, and I would have believed it was love." The words settled heavy in the air. I didn't pretend it was fine. I didn't make a joke. HFY wasn't about pretending the darkness wasn't there. It was about what you did with it. "You still might," I said quietly. Ashaz's eyes narrowed. "Do not test me." "I'm not," I said. "I'm acknowledging reality. You're powerful, you're angry, and you've been used. That doesn't go away because you held a ship together for one flight." Her gaze flicked away, then back. "But," I continued, "you also stopped. You chose not to do the thing you were built for. That's a start." Ashaz was silent a long moment. Then she leaned forward and her forehead touched the back of my hand, light, reverent, like a vow made in reverse. "Then tell me," she whispered, "what do humans do when they want to burn the galaxy?" I exhaled slowly, feeling the ache in my ribs and the stubborn beat of my heart. "We build something instead," I said. "Something the galaxy can't ignore, something that makes burning it feel like losing." Ashaz's eyes closed. When she opened them, the glow under her skin was gone, just blue skin and breath and a look that was still fierce, but no longer inevitable. "I do not know how to build," she admitted. "You will," I said. "We'll teach you." Her mouth curved, the smallest hint of a smile. "And if the galaxy tries to take you again," I met her stare and held it because fear didn't get smaller by being avoided. "Then we make them regret it," I said. Ashaz's smile vanished, replaced by something razor sharp. "Yes," she murmured. "That is the first human answer you have given me that sounds like home." I squeezed her fingers weakly. "Just remember the second part." "What second part?" "The part where we don't become monsters," I said. Ashaz looked at me for a long time, as if weighing an entire cosmos in her eyes. Then she whispered, so softly it barely disturbed the air, "If you die, I will burn the galaxy." I felt the old chill, the old certainty, but this time beneath it there was something new, an unsteady question. "And if you live," she added, voice trembling with something dangerously close to hope, "teach me how not to." I believed her. Not because she could burn the galaxy, because she had just asked how to save it. And that, in a universe built on deterrence and fear, was the most human thing I'd ever heard.